Hi y'all. So I want to explore the conversation of light language, and this video is for people who've activated their light language, who it's their first time, they never heard what light language is. Is light language the same as speaking in tongues? And just giving you some stories or some background into my personal experiences. So I started speaking in tongues maybe when I was like 17 years old, and it was mainly because I was attending a Pentecostal church, and there were people in the church that would be speaking in tongues, and I was curious as to what were they saying, why were they saying it, and why weren't they just speaking English? Why did they need to pray in another language? So I had an intense desire to understand what was being spoken and maybe to speak it myself. So it took a few weeks, but then one day I felt this warm energy just kind of come into my crown, and then I started speaking, just saying things in a foreign tongue. But I realized what I was saying, I was able to understand some of it. At that point, it was me praying for prosperity, praying for continued health, continued success in school. You know, it was things that was important to me at that point in time. So fast forward in my 20s, when my great-grandfather passed away, and I had an interesting experience where he was a spiritual Baptist, or which is a religion that's mainly found in the Caribbean, and it has Yoruba roots. And while we were in the church singing hymns, and I was just really distraught, crying a whole bunch, I just felt this intense energy just come on me, and I know I wanted to like say something in another language, but I was refusing because I thought it was inappropriate, or I just didn't want to do that in front of a lot of people, and I was just uncomfortable. And my grandmother was standing with me as we were singing and sharing the hymn book, and it was her dad that had passed away, and I was just crying because didn't know him very well, but he was pretty special. So I was gritting my teeth, not wanting to say what was trying to come out. But then I realized like I had to like allow it. And in the allowing, I began to see like images of him laying in the coffin, even though the coffin was right in front of me. But I saw like if he was laying in the coffin, I walked up to it. There's a specific kind of broom that we have in the Caribbean called a coquille broom, which is made from the stems of a coconut tree, and it has spiritual meaning as well. You usually keep that at the front of your door. You use it to sweep your yard. It's a pretty good broom, very eco-friendly for sure. Anyway, so I saw in my hand that I had this coquille broom, and that I was hitting his coffin, knocking it to the north, the east, the south, the west. And I felt like if his spirit was in the same space as what I was seeing in my mind's eye, what I was perceiving. And he walked next to me, and I walked with him, and a door opened, and he walked through that door and he told me he was leaving. And I thought it was really interesting because I was seeing that while I was speaking in tongues and crying and on the ground, kneeling, because I was trying to get up, but I could not. I just had to like sit in that energy. And when that was over and he left, I continued speaking again, and then eventually it subsided. The service went on. There were a lot of people who spoke at his funeral, and then we had the actual funeral the next day, the burial actually the next day. I was really uncomfortable by it because I didn't know why that happened to me, right? Because no one else in the church had spoken in tongues. And then why I had gotten that particular perception or vision of taking him or walking with him to a door. I later spoke to a professor of mine that I was close to, who actually was a Yoruba priestess, and she mentioned that that was the type of burials that you usually perform for high priests in the Yoruba tradition. Now, he was spiritual Baptist, but not Yoruba, and I didn't realize that it was similar, or that particular religion, spiritual Baptist, had the connection of that Yoruba tradition. So that was the early situation or the early experiences with tongues. Now, a week's passing, I started to whisper something under the breath, and it just wouldn't go away. Like I'd be in my car and just be saying a sentence. Driving, I'm at work. Every time I sat silent or sat in a moment, I would just be saying a particular sentence over and over and over. And I couldn't understand what I was saying and why I was saying it. And then after 3 weeks of that happening, I got a little frustrated and decided to ask, like, what is this? What am I saying? What language is this anyway? And then I was led to Aramaic. I just kind of heard Aramaic in my head, and I decided, like, I've never heard Aramaic before. What is that? I didn't even know that was a language. Nevertheless, I got a vocabulary and for Aramaic, and also a alphabet, and began to phonetically write down what I was hearing, or the sentence that I kept repeating over and over. And after a few hours of phonetically writing it down, getting the alphabet, I realized that I was saying to make me an altar with bread and honey, which was interesting because my religion at that point was Pentecostal, so I didn't really know much about altars, or why would I have to make an altar with bread and honey, and why was I saying that with my grandfather. Needless to say, I wasn't having it, right, because of just preconceived notions, and I decided that I was not going to do that. But I kept saying this sentence over and over and over, until one day I decided, okay, I'm not going to make this bread and honey because I don't know what that means, but what can I do to get this to stop? And I felt like grabbing a candle that I had, some water. So I grabbed a candle, some water, some rice, some beans, and I put it on a plate. I lit the candle, and I said, this is in memory of you. And the next day, I just stopped with that sentence. And it was pretty interesting, and I pushed it away because didn't really want to have much to do with speaking in tongues and making altars and stuff. I was pretty, specific in the way that I wanted to practice my spirituality. So fast forward a few years, ever so often I would inadvertently just say something or burst out saying something in tongues or language or light language, but sometimes I would know what it is that I was saying, and sometimes it might be, God protect me and my home, may I be prosperous, may I be protected and whole and safe. Things like that is what I would hear would be the translation of the light language. And I would say it in the comfort of my home or in my car, and just because it was by myself, I'd be like, okay, I'll just let it happen. But I'd never actually had to come to terms with it in public or with other people until a trip I took to Thailand a few weeks ago. So there was a retreat that I attended. I was really excited about it, to learn just more and just be surrounded with people who were either going through a spiritual transformation or were just like-minded people. And I was excited to see that on the calendar there was a light language activation. So I was curious and excited because I would finally get to be around people who've had these experiences and would be able to maybe have conversation, or so I thought. Was going to make another decision and not go to that event the day, but then at the last minute I felt an intuitive nudge that I needed to be there, that I needed to be at the back of the room, that maybe I needed to sit on the floor or something. So I have been allowing and being very conscious about my decision that when I do hear a nudge from the universe, that I respond to it. So against my initial plans, I decided that I wanted to attend. Now, I'd made a few friends and at the event, and I wanted to share with them that I wouldn't be able to go as we originally planned, and that I had to go to this light language activation because of that nudge that I got from Spirit. So when I had a conversation with them, they were also supportive and wanted to be there to share in that with me. They just couldn't see or do it any other way but for us to all go together. And I just thought that was pretty special. It was a special connection that I made with these 8 people or 7 people. So anyway, made my way to the event with some of my new friends, and we sat in the back like I thought I would. I didn't sit on the floor, but I took my shoes off. And when we got in there, they were starting the light language activation. So the person talked through what light language is. Sometimes you might know who it's coming from, where it's coming. Maybe it's, people have different beliefs or ideas as to what it is. Some people think it's a soul language. Some people think it's communication from beings. Some people think it's dimensional, interdimensional. It has a lot of mystery surrounding it, which is why I wanted to make this video. So I sat there and heard a bell, and as soon as I heard that bell, I just let it out. And it was interesting to me because I'd never had I've never spoken my language in front of anyone else before, except for my grandfather's funeral, and I let it out. I felt like I was opening energies from the universe, that I was pulling energies from the earth. I felt like if I was connected to everyone in the room, that I felt like what their intentions were with who wanted to be better with their spiritual connection, who wanted to be better with their connection with the earth, with Mother Earth, and just being better citizens or stewards or beings, just positivity. And I continued to speak that language for maybe about 30 minutes. It was spontaneous. I felt myself like sitting on a chair and watching it happen. I saw my body move in interesting ways. I felt like I was pulling energies up from the earth, so I was using my hands and pulling energies. I felt like if I was pulling from the universe and just tying it together, I felt like I was throwing that energy out into the room, into the people. And it was beautiful. At the end of the light language activation session, which ended on cue, by the way, it was so interesting. You would swear that I was a part of the ceremony, but it wasn't. It was just me allowing spirit to just speak through me. People came up and they were hugging me and telling me how special it was making them feel. Some people were crying. Some people's body was just like activating, like just shaking with the energy that was coming through, I guess based on the the songs, the frequency that was emanating from my voice. I was just blown away and amazed by how I felt and read the energy in the room. Felt like if I read the energy of the intentions of people, and just being able to manipulate it and move it around was just absolutely fantastic. And during the rest of the trip, I did get people come up and then express their gratitude and tell me how it made them feel. Some of them did express the fierceness of it, but yet it felt so loving, and it felt like if they were able to connect with Mother Earth. Some people felt like they were activated, like their chakras opened up, and they felt like their blockages were removed. So I just wanted to share that story with you. I felt really blessed and privileged just because we make decisions every day, and something as simple as I want you to go to that event and go and sit in the back of the room. I just imagined if I had not done that at that point in time, what those people experienced and came and shared with me, they would not have been able to do. So it makes me understand that we really have to live in flow. We really have to pay attention to the guidance that we're receiving, because we really don't know who we're going to affect when we listen. Namaste.